And welcome back to The Merge live at the North American Blockchain Summit. I got it right.
Yeah, you got it this time.
I'm Mark Hopkins. I'm here with Frank Kushner, and our guest this hour is the illustrious Gary Leland.
The illustrious. I've moved up a notch.
The Bitcoin boomer. Here we go.
Yeah,
Bitcoin boomer.
The credits so long, I can't go through them all right now. But most importantly, you are the curator, the meister over at the BitBlock Boom conference.
I am.
And you podcast about Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Boomer show. And you've done a million other things in podcasting and tech and blockchain. So
all I do is Bitcoin now.
It's all Bitcoin now. But in your past, we've gone parallel. So I feel like we could talk for a couple of hours. We have talked for hours.
I think we talked for a couple of hours this weekend.
Just this week, yeah.
So,
So welcome to the show. Welcome to the conference. How's it been for you so far?
Conference has been good. I saw Vivek this morning.
Yeah.
I hope I pronounced that correctly. I never watch speakers at all, ever.
Right.
I mean, I don't think I've watched a speaker session in 10 years at a conference, and I've been to 100 of them. And I decided to watch.
Except BitBlock Boom, right?
Well, actually, I'm working so much I don't watch them. I'm just not a sessions guy. I'm more like hanging out in the hallway guy.
Right.
You know, I like going to conferences. Like, I've been here all day, but I don't really go to the sessions. You know, there are hallway people and there are session people. And I'm a hallway person.
Yeah, but Vivek, he's very well spoken. He's got great content. Like, what did you think about that? You listened
I like his three rules, or not rules, but his 3 points that he was trying to make that he's going to go through. I thought anyone who's into Bitcoin is going to have to like those points. Most Americans should like those points. You know, you could self-custody, not make any laws to hamper, if you're trying to do a startup or something.
Right.
Code is speech. I mean, this is all basic fundamental
stuff.
Rights that we have, that people don't realize. I don't think they realize anymore that these are these things we have. They're not things we need to be given. They're things we have, but we may need to take them back.
Right.
Yeah. But it's not like someone's doing us a favor.
Yeah. Right.
So again, we're here for the summit, the blockchain summit, but I want to go back to your roots for a second. You've been doing this for quite some time, 2004. You've been basically decentralized podcasting. What was that like back then? Were you doing it live? Were you live podcast? I mean, gosh, you have dial-up. I mean, back then, how did you?
You really didn't. You really can't do live podcasting. I mean, since it has to be sent out on by the nature of the description of podcasting. Everybody calls things a podcast.
Everything's
now.
a podcast now.
But YouTube videos aren't a podcast. I mean, if you're making YouTube videos. But it was a whole different world back then. I think I was like one of the first 50. And I didn't even realize. People told me later that I was one of the first 50. I didn't understand it. And everybody who did a podcast, for the most part, were on Apple computers because they came with a GarageBand. So they had editing equipment on their computer already. Right. And it was kind of like a crazy world back then. You had to use an iPod. Most people don't know what an iPod is now. You go to bed and you hook your iPod up to your computer so that the next morning you had your podcast you wanted to listen to on there. The iPhone really revolutionized podcasting more than anything else.
Right.
More than iTunes. I had a podcasting directory way before iTunes did. And
Did you start off with? Were you like traditional media at one point, or did you just
I was a sporting goods store. And I received an email one day that it said, there's this new thing coming out called podcasting, might be worth investigating. So we started podcasting and made a podcast directory.
Who sent you that email?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Could have been you for all I didn't know. I have no idea. It was only like in the email, it was a marketing email, let's do it. There's only like 2 lines in there about it. But I told one of my guys, I said, hey, find out what this podcast is and let's start working on this.
Yeah.
And next thing I knew, a month later, we had one of the first podcast directories. I was going, I didn't mean to go through all that much trouble. I just thought. So then we started doing a sports podcast. Right. I think we were the first sports podcast.
Right.
We'd interview people in sports because I had a sporting goods store.
Yeah.
I was trying to drive sales to the sporting goods sale.
I mean, I don't know if you, how much you watch TV, but there was the one with Tim Allen, and it was a sporting goods store. So that's the first thing. That's the first place I went to when he said sporting goods store, video log.
Actually, when I started in when I started building a website in '95, e-commerce site, everybody told me I was an idiot. People wouldn't buy stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time building a shopping cart. That was my hang up, was building a shopping cart because you couldn't just do it like you can now.
Right.
You had to actually build this stuff.
You couldn't just install WooCommerce or Shopify or something.
So I stopped working on it for a while, and then back in '96, I picked it back up.
Right.
And I finally got it done. It's funny. What's really funny about that is when I started that store was a wallpaper website selling wallpaper. It was the first wallpaper website. I got a lot of firsts, kind of just the timing. And so I decided to do the sporting good website, and I didn't want to build that whole shopping cart again, so I used the same shopping cart.
Yeah.
So they check out at the baseball website, softball website, and they go to a wallpaper website.
Yeah.
To check out. And no one ever called questioning it. They just bought their stuff on there.
I mean, the internet was a different place.
But they wouldn't give you their credit card number on the internet. They wanted to give it to you in person.
Right.
I'm not putting it in that machine. I want you to write it down on a piece of paper, stranger I don't know, and maybe throw it in the trash can. So write this down.
That's so funny. I just remember I had an e-commerce site that we were working on, and just the quotes that we were getting, pre Shopify, it was like the quotes we were getting to create that shopping basket. That check. Oh my God, what a nightmare that was. Woo.
Yeah, I switched over to WordPress, and I had to do a shopping cart. And said I'm going to go with WooCommerce. And so I went with it, but it wasn't owned by WordPress then.
Right.
And so 6 months later, I had stuff going, and they bought it. And I was like, wow, I really picked the right one. I guess that was the best one since they bought it.
Right.
So it went right in there. But yeah, I've kind of been into a lot of things that were startups, I guess. And I kind of get, my wife says I'm attention deficit, but I get as consumed with whatever I do.
Sure.
So now I'm consumed with Bitcoin, and we sold off all our businesses, and this is all I do, whether it's the conference or speaking or just hanging out and talking about Bitcoin.
Right.
It's kind of a, I think Bitcoiners are like Jehovah's Witnesses. This is my deal. Jehovah's Witnesses, I don't know if you know much about it, but
let me give you my testimony.
They only think 144,000 people are going to heaven.
Right.
It's not like everybody can become a Jehovah's Witness and go to heaven.
Right.
The top 144,000, my friend converted. I told him, so you're never going to heven. I know what you did when you were.
It was way more than 100.
It's got to be 144,000 people ahead of you. But the thing is, Bitcoin, Jehovah's Witnesses go door to door, not because they think they're going to get most of them realize they're not going to heaven, but they want to help people out.
Right.
And a lot of Bitcoiners are like that in the fact that once they start talking about it, they can't quit, and they're not trying to get you to buy Bitcoin because you're going to help their stack go up. They want you to buy Bitcoin because they want to help you. And that's the way Jehovah's Witnesses are, really. And I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I just know this much about them.
Right,
but that little bit amount that I know is a lot like a Bitcoiner.
Sure.
They're like going, I don't want you missing the boat here. I want you knowing about this, and that's the way Jehovah's Witnesses are.
It's a little religious. Yeah.
It's a little cultish, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Not as cultish as Jehovah's Witnesses, but it is a little cultish.
Oh my goodness, that's
Yeah, write your letters to the
to the Finch and Mark.
Yeah, just write to the circular file. Okay, so so you've been in a few cycles now. So what have been the more interesting things that you've seen since you're because you got into it? I remember I joined you at the beginning of your journey when you and Tony were just
you were the first guest we had on our show.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you did.
Very proud of that.
As soon as I got into Bitcoin, I started doing a podcast, and then within a year, I had a conference.
Yeah.
So I moved pretty fast once I got into the world.
So, but much like me, where I got into Bitcoin and I started selling it almost immediately, just so I could kind of have a finger on the pulse of what was going on. You started that conference, you did the podcast, so you've had a interesting way to have a finger on the pulse of what the community is like, what the culture is like, and what the ecosystem that's outside of Bitcoin but connected to it, like the crypto and the blockchain world. So what have you seen?
Well, we've seen a real separation of Bitcoin from crypto. That's been a big thing, I think, is the fact that...
it wasn't like that when you started.
It was all crypto.
Right.
And over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a separation where there's 20,000 cryptocurrencies and then there's Bitcoin.
Right.
And you've even heard it said in the House, Bitcoin and... So that's been another big thing. I was thinking about this because I'm on a panel tomorrow, and it was one of the questions. And since BitBlock Boom, using that into consideration, at the first BitBlock Boom, I think you were there, you spoke at that.
Yep.
There was one girl there, one female.
Right.
BitBlock Boom. Not even, so it wasn't even 1%, I don't think, of the people.
Right.
Now, 7 years later, it's still not in parity, but it's 12, 13%. So it's growing at a good rate, which always confuses me, since in many households, the women hold the purse strings.
Right.
Like even in my house, my wife keeps all the money, and takes care of all that. I just spend it and make it. She tells me, "Oh, don't spend any more or make more," one or the other.
Yeah. That's always kind of a laggard type approach in finance. So we have a host on our network named Dina Abdul, and she's an NBA wife, and she said whenever her husband joined the NBA, all the financial advisors would talk to the wives to get to the husbands, and then totally miss the boat on any of the, because the wives, like you said, they hold the purse strings even in those relationships. Like they're the ones making a lot of financial decisions, and a lot of financial advisors that didn't recognize that would lose business because they tick off the wives.
Yeah,
like you treat me like I'm a gatekeeper for you? No, go away.
No, exactly.
Right.
And then they have a lot of input, and a lot of times the men just don't even want to mess with it. So women, I don't know if it's one of those things, it's a right brain, left brain, or what it is, but I find most people that the wives handle that, but they are late getting into Bitcoin. So I don't know if the husbands were like getting a side gig to buy Bitcoin with, or weren't telling their wives what's going on, or, but they're getting stacks, and then their wives are finding out about it.
I mean, I know what it was like for me, because I covered it early at SiliconANGLE, and I, would buy it and sell it, and then my wife would, why are we sending this money to MT Gox in Hong Kong to, what is this for? Why is $3,000 missing from our bank? Trust me, babe, it's going to be I don't like this. And then, of course, I got forgiveness later once the price went up. But
that's the way it was. My wife's going, what? How much Bitcoin we got?
Yeah.
How much did you spend?
Right.
And then when it started going up to 60 and 70, she was like, how did you know this?
How did you not buy more? Why?
Well, you were so smart. How did you figure this out? But if she had seen it go from, earlier drops, she probably had a heart attack. Because this has been a hard one for her, because this is our first bear market. And she saw it go up to 69 and go back down to 17. And it's been really long. This is the longest bear market I've experienced. So I tell her that today. I said, Kathy, I got to give you props. Not only did you see the biggest dollar drop, maybe not percentage, but dollar drop, it's been the longest one I've ever seen. Yeah. And so I got to give you props for handling it. Marriages
that survive Bitcoin bear markets are truly the stuff of legend.
They have to be. They have to be.
Yeah.
But, that's one of the things I see the women involved in Bitcoin. And I see a lot more boomers involved in Bitcoin, too.
Yeah.
Than I did before. I'll go into places and I'll be at some place in my peer group at a party that a friend has, and someone's told someone that I'm into Bitcoin. And then someone told me, hey, I'm into Bitcoin. So, and I'm a boomer. I'm going, I see you're a boomer. You don't have to tell me that.
I wonder how much of that has to do with, as an older adult, you've actually seen so many market cycles. Like the people that are managing money now and the people that are actually in the room right here, the majority of them have never seen QE anything, right? It's always been QE infinity. And we've actually seen a few market cycles where interest rates have been volatile. Like I remember they raised by 1/4 point pre-2000, and the market comes crashing down by 1% to 2% just because of a 25 basis point move. And now that's a joke.
Right.
So I wonder how much more of that is like knowing that we want to be a little more conservative with the nest egg that we do have. And it tends to be your generation now that is sitting on the majority of the nest egg. And so in a way, it's kind of a conservative investment if you understand it.
Yeah, well, you're right. The boomers have the most money of any generation, and in probably any generation ever as a whole. And we're getting ready to pass on more money that's ever been passed on to, I don't know who's next, millennials, generation next. I don't know.
Yeah, we're not getting it though. You're going to skip us and give it straight to the grandkids.
Well, I've always told my kids since they were 13, they're not getting jacked.
Yeah.
We're going to spend it all.
Right.
I wanted them not to be thinking.
That's what my dad told. My dad said, "I'm going to die in debt. Don't worry, you're not going to assume it."
We're going to just piss it all away. We're just going to piss it away. Which we aren't. They're going to get plenty, but they grew up with that mentality. They weren't getting jacked.
Yeah.
And that they had 4 years to get out of college. We paid for 4 years. Then they were on their own.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't X. Is like we had to do our own thing.
They both got out in 4 years, and they had to get jobs, or they couldn't come back home. They both got jobs.
Yeah.
So we were really tough on our kids.
Yeah.
And but I think things were tough. They weren't as tough on me as they were my parents and my grandparents. Every generation is easier and easier.
Yeah.
Because of technology or whatever's happening. But
some kind of progress, right?
Yeah, it's part of progress.
So anyway, bringing it back to the conversation point, though, is that again, you guys have like a tremendous amount of wealth now, but also you've seen so many different market cycles, and you know that asset allocation and diversification, right? Key there is not just asset allocation, but diversification shows that you want to have a cash freezer for your money so that you are able to get out, right?
I'm not very diversified, so I'm kind of like a Bitcoin guy through and through. I'm
through and through. You're all in.
I'm all in.
I'm
all in. Whether it's MicroStrategies or Riot Planet
or whatever.
So diversification for the Bitcoin maximalist means having a little bit in a cold wallet, a little bit in the hot wallet, and a little bit of MicroStrategy, and that's about it.
Yeah, to me, MicroStrategies is my ETF.
There you go.
I mean, I've already been in an ETF since that stuff was like 160 or something.
Right.
I mean, the day he announced, I remember I was talking to Bitcoin Tina out of Florida, I don't know if you're familiar with him, and I said, this sounds like an ETF to me. I'm buying.
Right.
Yeah. Because that Michael Saylor doesn't know what he's talking about. And I said, I don't know. I'm buying. So,
what do you think about what the legislation coming up in January as far as like GBTC and even if they do, like they're obviously selling at a bit of a discount. Do you think that pop in the discount is worth arbitraging, or do you think it's better just to
I'm not really into GBTC and all that, so I'm not the person to ask on all that. I just wouldn't put my money in that. Really, actually, I have things already that are in IRAs and stuff like that. That's the only reason it's in MicroStrategy and stuff. Other than that, I probably would have just put it all in Bitcoin too.
Yeah.
So when I say I'm all in Bitcoin, I'm all in Bitcoin. I'm not,
as a financial advisor that actually has very limited options in what I'm able to invest in. For me, MicroStrategy, I'm not going to do that, but there may be a small part.
What's your problem with MicroStrategy? Just out of curiosity, I mean, they're making good money and they make decent money.
I'm not denying any part of that.
Great reserve.
It's not necessarily. It's a software company, as far as I'm concerned. That I can't figure out how to buy the software. I can't do diligence enough to be able to say that I'm going to put my clients in MicroStrategy. But GBTC or THE, it's literally the underlying. It's a derivative. It's an instrument of the actual. Token,
they own that.
Right.
They own
so for me, I don't have to worry about execution risk on Saylor's port if he over or under levers, right?
So then you should be really waiting on ETFs.
That's why I was asking. I wanted to know whether or not you believe that the GBTC thing could convert over to an ETF, how that would look, and what your thoughts would be on that.
I believe it could convert over to an ETF. They have an ETF, basically. All they have to do is make it an ETF. I mean, they have the Bitcoin in stock.
Right.
It's not like they have to acquire, like BlackRock's been acquiring it. Yeah. So I'm sure they're just ready to go as soon as they get the word. I don't think that's the issue, whether it's happening or not. And I think there are a lot of people, especially boomers, who are not prepared to buy a wallet and remember these seed phrases.
Right.
I had this conversation with somebody, as Voltaire said, with great power, you've got to take care of that. And it's like what Uncle Ben said.
Right, great responsibility.
That's the way.
My wife loves that quote, so she's watching right now.
I say Uncle Ben, most people know Uncle Ben, not Voltaire.
Yeah.
But most people are not prepared for that power or that responsibility. They kind of want the power, but they don't want the responsibility.
Right. That brings me to I was going to ask you about this. So we've been talking with a lot of people with a lot of different approaches to education. Obviously, your preference, if you can educate somebody is if they hold their own keys, right?
Yes.
I know that about you.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do you get boomers and other normies from A to Z in terms of understanding the concept and holding their own keys?
I find the easiest thing to do for me, because I've tried to convert a lot of boomers, is to get them to start dollar cost averaging.
Okay.
If you can get them to do it, I don't care if it's Swan or River or where in the hell it's at, but they get the emails that they bought some, and they're buying $10 a week or $100 a week or $1,000 a week, whatever their place in life is. But they start looking at that different from buying it once. One person had in 2000 when it was $3,000. I talked him into buying $10,000 worth. They never looked at it again.
You know what? That's a great idea and thought process. Looking back at my client base that's older is used to dollar cost averaging in, and the younger generation is more transactional. So that's a whole different mentality set.
It makes it look at it too.
Yeah.
And instead of buying it once and not looking at it for 4 years, they go, I got some of that. They go, oh my gosh! And the several people I've done that to have called me within 3 months. One guy goes, oh, I went in and bought 10,000 a day. Another guy goes, I bought 100,000 a day. But they start looking at it, buying it, seeing it. Maybe if you're like with Swan or something, you get a little email telling you about it.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, they're orange pilling themselves.
Right.
But it's getting skin in the game on a regular basis. Not one-time skin. Regular basis is the deal.
Right.
If you want to orange pill someone, that's the easiest way to do it, Mike.
There you go. My most popular video is the dollar cost averaging video.
And they don't have to buy a lot. You can just, hey, can't you afford $10 a week?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to like say, we need you to buy 1%. You just got to get them to buy a little bit on a regular basis, and you can talk them into that.
Right.
You know. So that's my deal. It's dollar cost average.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
I think we got time for one more question. They're giving me a signal over there.
What? Is that your son giving you that signal over there?
He's giving me. So you got one last one in you?
I'm just really impressed with the turnout of everybody, the boomer, like really the dollar cost averaging thought process and that mentality is actually something that I really have never considered when it comes to personality traits of investors. But that's something I'm definitely going to start thinking about moving forward.
I'm still kind of surprised on the not getting one of the MicroStrategy's deal. Especially with it down, it was as high as $1,000.
Yeah.
Now it's 500. We know Bitcoin's going up.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, it's like sitting there like a pretty looking thing to me.
We had I literally had a FINRA auditor in my office in our office, and they literally started questioning the choices of some of the investments that we had in the portfolio. And it didn't matter the size, because the size was negligible. But they had an issue with me as a professional who literally had discretion. And so to make the world a better place in our firm and regulatorily, GBTC and ETHE were the only ones that I felt comfortable with.
I see where you're going. I'm just surprised. I would have never thought that.
Go talk to those other guys. See if you can talk to those 3-letter agencies.
Back in the floor there. That's
Boomer. So I guess on the way out for the segment, can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be on? You said you got a panel tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I'm on a panel.
Tell me what's going on with that.
I don't know. It's a Bitcoin panel. That's all I know.
You don't know? What's the topic?
Bitcoin.
Just Bitcoin?
I don't know. I don't do a lot of homework that comes off. That's why I do panels. I don't want to do a lot of homework.
We'll all be surprised together tomorrow.
You either know the subject and you've been invited to be on the panel or you're done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And that's why I do panels. I don't want to make up PowerPoint and do all this work.
Yeah.
So I do panels, and I don't know. I just know it's about Bitcoin.
Great. Well, we'll be watching.
I'll be watching too to see what.
Awesome.
All right.
Hey, I enjoyed it, guys.
And Gary, thanks so much for coming on. Glad you joined us here at the Merge.
Yeah, and tell your son he did a good job back there.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be back after this break. Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.